we have our first ever Fantasy Ruckers League champion who etches their name in the Fantasy Major League Rugby history books. The Fantasy Rucker Show starts right now.
Where rugby and the world of fantasy sports collide. Welcome to the Fantasy Ruckers Show, bringing fantasy rugby to the masses, talking all things rugby from the MLR to leagues around the world. We're on top of it. Headphones on, pads off. This is the Fantasy Ruckers Show. Now, here are your hosts, Ryan Yee, Matt Yee, and Devin Vanderpool.
What's up, everybody? This is episode number 21 of the Fantasy Ruckers Show. Thank you so much to our league members. Thank you so much to our Fantasy Ruckers community members and everyone else tagging along on this journey of making fantasy rugby a reality in the MLR. And boys, we have ourselves a champion. Matt Yee, Devin, Vandy Vanderpool with me as always. Guys, we crowned ourselves a number one guy here.
Whatever. I'm looking forward to next year.
Yeah, you know what? Are we doing the draft anytime soon? Or
yeah,
right, we're ready. We're ready. Looking on. We're moving on.
When am I winning the next chip? That's my two questions.
You know what? Maybe that's what it takes. I think being a guy that's been involved in many different fantasy sports, I think short-sightedness is a positive. So,
and especially being able Matt, who hasn't really won any of them.
Whoa.
We're gonna start off the episode just
Buddy,
like
I've got
that,
Excel sheets already prepared for next season. You know how many heat charts I've got? Not one, not two. I got four heat charts for next season, Vandy.
Damn, after we spoke with Hokie last week and you got those tips, you went right to the books, eh? You went right to
starting to the heat charts.
There we go.
And sticky notes. Combine two of the finalist skills, put them together. That's going to be a dub for me.
Yeah, combining the best of the best from John, the best of the best from Hokie. And hey, maybe that's what it'll take for next year. But hey, we still got this year to talk about. We, like I said at the top of the show, we got ourselves a champion. We are going to tell you guys who won the very first Fantasy Ruckers League, the very first season that there was fantasy rugby in the MLR. It was an exciting season, an exciting finish to this season, and a whole lot of points scored in this week, which made the finals in both our actual championship and the Toilet Bowl championship pretty exciting here. But before we break any of that down, Vandy, why don't you show what you got there, man? Why don't you show the people what you're wearing?
Are you talking this old thing? Hey, are you talking this old thing? Boom!
Whoa!
Whoa!
Whoa! Look at that! And for those of you listening on the podcast, that was a pseudo haka by Vandy after he has now received the jersey that Stephen Lowen, the owner of Feral Hippies, promised Vandy if he beat Maddie in the standings, he would send him a jersey. And look at that, it's looking pretty good on you there, Vandy. It fits you well. You're looking good in the black and red, man. Everyone on the show and everyone listening and everyone's been following on knows that we are a lover of rugby kit. I mean, you can see all the jerseys we have here. I mean, our trophy that we are going to be talking about very soon is a friggin' rugby jersey. So of course we like rugby kit.
That's
and
right.
To see you finally get your very first piece of rugby kit on your team, man, it's really exciting, man. But make you feel good, make you feel love the Utah Warriors a little bit more.
It makes you feel at home. You know what?
Does it?
Just makes you feel at home. The only next step is now, I guess you're flying out to Utah this weekend to get out there for training. Get out there for the last game of the season. They're really playing for nothing. So hey,
go out to the
old Vandy.
Hey, go out to the old Bible Belt in Utah, and
there you go.
There we go. And hey, Matt, what did you tell me before the show that Vandy looked like now that he sent us the pictures, right? He sends us the pictures in our group chat of him when as soon as he got the jersey. He's looking good. He's posing in the pictures. Matt, what did you tell me that Vandy looks like? It wasn't Mikey Teo that he was saying.
No. You're not Mikey Teo. We all know you're not Mikey Teo, okay? There's only one of one for Mikey Teo, but I told Ryan, I was like, hey, this guy looks like a bigger Niall Saunders right off the gates. You're just Niall Saunders coming off the bench, coming in hot, and just ship and fill.
Brother, I appreciate that, but you ever seen how fast Niall Sanders is?
Yeah, you're faster.
Not only when I'm headed to get a cheeseburger.
Hey man, cheeseburger tries.
Whatever it takes, dude. Whatever it
They used to
takes.
call
If
tries
it-
meat pies, so you can have one of those too.
If it takes me to put a cheeseburger in the try zone for you to make the MLR, dude, I'll
Hold
be
on,
your
you got a little
cheeseburger
No,
guy.
no,
And
Ryan,
have
you gotta
cheeseburgers
sit on
right
his
here?
back. You sit on his back with a pole in front and just see him fly.
Nah, it'll be Vandy who's the
looking like
leading
Ed
try
Fidel,
scorer in
baby.
2023. The cheeseburger secret. That's that's the way Vandy's gonna make
You know
his
what?
name for
You
it in
know
the
what? And
MLR.
maybe this is a tease for a future episode. But Vandy, man, I hope we can get my buddy on the Utah Warriors on. Oh, he'll back up everything I'm saying and say that you're perfect for the team. You're perfect for the squad.
There we go. I don't know if that's a good thing. I don't know if that's a bad thing, but hey, we'll have to wait and see
Great thing.
if we can get that Utah Warriors player on the show at some point. A little bit of a tease there for those of you who are listening and watching. But yeah, if you guys are just tuning in, this is the first episode that you guys are watching. Hey, we're trying to make fantasy rugby a reality in the MLR, and we've been doing it for the past how many weeks, guys? About over 21 weeks. We've been trying to do this, and yeah, if you're just hopping along, it's been an absolute blast. Our league members been having a really awesome time through the course of the season. It's kind of sad that we are now having to wrap things up, but we do have a few things in store here for the guys that have been following on to keep our fantasy rugby taste buds going. But if you haven't done so yet, make sure you're following us along on social media, on YouTube, wherever you can follow along, Instagram, Twitter, all that good stuff. That's where you're going to be able to stay up to date with this Fantasy Ruckers League, whether that's us trying to expand this thing, get more people involved in fantasy rugby in the MLR. That is where you're going to find out all about it. So make sure you go do that. Give us a subscribe here at the bottom in YouTube. Leave us a comment too. We love to have discussions with our fans and with guys that are also interested in making fantasy rugby a reality in the MLR. I know a lot of you have been posting on there, and we'd like to interact with the Fantasy Ruckers community. It always leads to interesting conversations. So whether it's in the comments section or if it's joining our Discord channel as well, that's also available for our community. So go out there and check that all out because yeah, I've been having a lot of fun talking fantasy rugby through the course of this season. Now, with that being said, we are going to, yes, you all have been waiting for, going to reveal our very first Fantasy Ruckers League champion. But before we get there, we do have some key news and notes that we need to get to that are important here, that are going around the MLR and beyond in the world of rugby. The first thing that we need to get out of the way, if you guys were following us on social media, if you were following at the Fantasy Ruckers, you would have been aware of this challenge that we had created. But we created ourselves a little group over in the May Madness Bracket Challenge. And for those of you who weren't aware of what that exactly is, the Collegiate Rugby Championship happened over this Memorial Day weekend, and basically they did their own little spin-off of March Madness, which was, I thought, a really cool thing to grow rugby, get some more people involved. They had some pretty cool prizes that were available for the people who had the top brackets out of the whole pool of brackets that were submitted, and we created our own little Fantasy Ruckers League, and a lot of our Fantasy Ruckers community members got a chance to join, and it was a lot of fun. And before I get to revealing kind of the stats behind that, guys, what were your thoughts? I see your names on the leaderboard. A little bit tough there.
It was just done. You created this league, and I know the Feral Hippies team was part of it too. And I'm pretty sure you guys just did this for Vandy and I to have another league to be last place of. So I'm really tired.
You guys just like to point and laugh at me.
Yeah, what
That's
is
just
it?
it's
You're
just a
really
big
making us look like a couple of fantasy suckers. That's what you're doing. You're making us look like a couple fantasy suckers.
I swear I'm not trying to do this on purpose, but it does seem like
Who
something.
is Coolstown? Who is Coolstown?
Well, I was just about to get there. Congratulations to the two teams that did win in the men's bracket. It was Cootstown that won the men's sevens national championship, and it was Lindenwood for the women's that won their championship. I'll admit, I don't know who Cootstown was. Feral Hippies, they somehow knew who they were, and they obviously picked them. I will give Steven a shout out though. Before we move on from this, it wasn't the bracket that he submitted in our group, but he has the second highest bracket nationally in all the brackets that were submitted. He has the second.
Serious?
I'm not even kidding. And he mentioned it in our Discord community. And I'm looking at the leaderboard right now on the brackets mademadness7s.com website. Best bracket ever by Feral Hippies is in second place. And the grand prize, Vandy, the grand prize for winning second place is 2 VIP tickets to the next National Rugby Championship that's going to be held in New Orleans next May. So through this whole process, Steven might have got himself 2 tickets to go see the next National Rugby Championship, which is pretty insane, man.
That's so cool.
The fact that he made 2 brackets. Maybe even 3. Maybe he made 5 and was just hoping one of them.
He could have had 100 and we don't even know.
He could have had 100. But 2, the fact that he knew who Cootstown or whatever town won, in respect to Cootstown, he deserves that second place. He deserves it.
I
wonder
say,
where you're gonna go with that, but yeah, I was gonna say I can make 100. I'm still not coming second.
I mean, I will at the top.
I think he dragged us into this knowing that he was gonna get second in the nation. That's what he did. He knew he was going to get second in the nation. Said,
he's got insider trading, man.
Join this league. I'm just going to absolutely wreck you guys by getting second in the nation and show you guys how it's done. So,
it is a little bit fishy that he is the one, like, he didn't even talk with me beforehand when he's like, hey, I created this group for us, let's submit bracket. I'm like, okay, more rugby content, that's great. But yeah, you might be onto something, Matt. Maybe he knew this all along and it was just to kind of pump himself up and show off that he has superior rugby knowledge, whether it's in bracket form, whether it's in fantasy form, or whether it's just any form. He has superior rugby knowledge than all of us combined.
Yeah, who do you know on Cootstown? Tell me.
I don't know. I'm not saying. There we go. That's
I've
basically.
had enough of talking about leagues that I'm losing in. Let's move on to another league I'm losing in.
All right, so now time to some even bigger news, guys. Some pretty big stuff here with when it comes to the MLR as a whole, which is going to trickle down into the fantasy rugby landscape in terms of what stats we can use, what resources are available to us, and so forth, and things like that. It's always going to be interesting, as that is a very big aspect to fantasy rugby. Obviously, is going to be the stats that are available to us, and as you guys, obviously experienced throughout the course of the season, the differences in what stats you can actually track and what stats you can tabulate, and how that affects kind of the strategies going into a weekly basis in fantasy rugby, in the MLR in particular. With all that being said, the MLR has done us a little bit of a solid here. I don't know how much it's going to impact. I don't know how big of a difference it's going to make, but it is a positive sign. If you go on to the MLR website and you go onto the results of this past week, you can now see a little bit of in-depth stats now. The MLR has in-depth stats on their website, both from a team perspective and even from an individual perspective, at a limited capacity, I will say. But hey, a positive sign for the MLR here.
Hey, homie.
Whatever. I mean,
I've been using this for weeks.
Positive.
Have you? No, not the actual the in-depth one. They haven't had this, man. I've checked this, dude.
If you go to, which one are you on? Are you on the schedule and then you go to results and hit top scores, statistics?
Yeah.
Buddy.
I swear, they did not have.
You know what? I don't blame us. You know why, Ryan? Because
the only reason I say that is because I've gotten the amount of penalties right the last 6 weeks. So
I gave up on the MLR to give us stats this season, and that's why I haven't been checking. But the other thing is, you're giving us the top 5. Why don't you just give us a list so we can scroll down? Is it that hard? You're already tracking the stats for every player. Why don't you just give it to us? Just give us the whole stat.
They can't. They can't do that.
Why?
I don't know. It'd be too much.
It's just a little kiss on the mouth.
It'd be too helpful. But yeah, hey, I didn't know that. I didn't see that these were getting updated or as I guess, laid out as they were here. I guess they were up for a little bit, but it did seem like they were being a little bit more up to date with these in terms of getting this up. So yeah, something I noticed at least in this past week. The last piece of news that I want to mention here, guys, is something that we've been following over the past couple episodes, and now a little bit turn of events. We had been talking about the old boy All Blacks, the old boy Wallabies, and the Sabre box over in Houston. And one player in particular that we've been watching that has gotten himself in the kind of drama of that scene is Quaid Cooper. And the past 2 weeks, we've been talking about Quaid Cooper potentially joining the LA Guiltinis. And we saw him training at practice. We saw him in the LA Guiltinis kit. And yes, this happened a few days ago. But we have now seen Quaid Cooper in Rugby New York kit now. So I don't know where to go with this thing. I don't know where Quaid Cooper is going. Well, I don't know what to think of this anymore. I don't know.
Well, okay, he's a coast
salary cap. Like,
he's a coast to coast legend. All right, that's what happens. He's going coast to coast. He's testing the waters. But I did say this in the Discord. He's eligible for the old boy All Blacks. He's eligible. He was born in New Zealand and played for the Wallabies. So technically, he's eligible to play for the old boy All Blacks. So he's good. He's clear.
So I guess both teams are just courting him.
Yeah, they're both courting him, but he's got to be eligible for them first. So yeah, it's good that we got that out of the way.
Got that out of the way. He's got his tryout. He got the kit. Now he's going to go back to Australia, going to make his decision. And then we're going to get one of those classic collegiate announcements where he has all the hats on the table. And then Quaid Cooper's going to be like, you know what? I pick here, right? Is that how it's going to go?
He's going to pick the Dallas Jackals.
Imagine. Oh, my God. That would make sense. In an alternate universe. Yeah, that would make a whole lot of sense. But
maybe.
Yeah, if you're following along with these Quaid Cooper sweepstakes, that throws a whole nother wrench in this thing.
Yeah, I mean, let's be real. He's probably going to end up back in Australia, not pick either of them. He just came here on vacation with the family, just enjoying some time with the boys, and decided that he just wanted to stir the pot a little bit, get some new kit, go home.
No, what it was, DK Metcalf rolled up to the Guiltinis practice.
I saw that. Dude, I
saw
that.
You know what? They're like, Quaid's got to go, man. Look at this monstrosity.
How many tries is DK Metcalf scoring in a year if he joined rugby? I'll give you right now.
But that guy is a freak and like
a lead try scorer right now is Ed Fidow with 12 tries. Is DK Metcalf? You threw him on the wing on Rugby New York or LA Guiltinis, and you told him to just go. Is he scoring 12 tries in a season? I don't know. I think he could get pretty close because that guy's amazing.
I think he'd get pretty damn close. That guy is Jay.
I think only if he could play without a shirt on, though.
See, the best part is he doesn't need.
He would have to paint on number 14 on his back.
Exactly. All right. Well, let's move on here, guys. Let's move on to breaking down the performances in round 17 that led to the big championship win that we will reveal in just a moment's time. We got to break down some of these games, and we mentioned it at the top of the show, man. It was a high scoring week. And Matt, you mentioned it. It seemed like the teams didn't really feel like playing defense this week.
Yeah, I mean, we're heading into the last 2 weeks of the season. I'm sure the boys are just tired of tackling. They just want to run a little bit. They want to play a little bit of touch, or at least they think they're playing touch. So, last 2 weeks of the season, they're just having a little run out there.
Yeah, I mean, I will say heading into round 17, there was a lot on the line, a lot of playoff spots that were going to be determined, that did get determined in this past week, leading to some pretty exciting matchups. Really starting off on that first matchup on that Friday between the Houston SaberCats and the Seattle Seawolves, a high scoring affair between these two teams. I mean, before I get into the fantasy performances here, I must say, AJ Alatimu, man, the way he's able to distribute, the way he's able to boot the ball effectively into the pockets that he wants to put it in, to put his players into positions that lead to try-scoring opportunities is absolutely incredible. That's something that I really did notice. And hey, the Houston SaberCats making a little bit of a late push there to buy their playoff ticket, leading to that Robbie Povey last-minute kick to get get them that extra bonus point, pull them within that final bonus point within those 7 points to get that ticket into the playoffs for Houston. Pretty incredible, man. You saw the emotion. You saw, I don't know if you guys saw the picture on Reddit of Zach Pangelainen, just so emotional, finally breaking into the playoff scene. I believe this is the first time that Houston is making the playoffs, and it's especially incredible, not only because they didn't win a single match last season, but I think it's even more impressive because Matthew was bagging on this team about a month and a half ago, and ever since he started doing that, Houston has turned it around and made the playoffs. So I'll leave it at that, guys. What were your thoughts on the matchup, Matt? I'll start with you. It's true. You can't give me that surprise face, dude.
I wasn't bagging on him. All right, hold on.
I will pull up the episode.
Own it. You have to own it.
You don't even know.
I own what I said about the
members. We need to hold this guy accountable.
The Houston SaberCats, and if I was bagging on them, that means I'm bagging on myself. But although that's not a very good compliment to those boys, but hey, they did it. And thank goodness that you said the guy's name, because I was about to say his name was Zach Pangalupe. and that was all I remembered. So I'm glad you said it, or else I would have had to watch it just the way that I just did. But oh man, I mean, it's great to see a nice little high scoring affair. It was a good way to kind of, see a couple backlines just go to work. Didn't have to watch Dean Muir put up 4 tries against me, and just saw a couple backlines just absolutely be a little clinical. It was good to see. Great rugby to watch.
Yeah, Vandy, what did you think, man?
I thought it was pretty sad to see Buddy go down with that. Or who was I can't remember now. Was it AJ Alatimu that went down with the injury?
I don't believe so.
Who went down with that injury at like 60 minutes or whatever? He was just laying in the field. I think it was somebody on Seattle.
I can't recall.
Oh, well, it seemed to give him kind of like a burst of energy. I can't remember who it was now. I thought I wrote down the number, but I guess I didn't. But no, I thought it was a good game. I mean, like you guys said, really high scoring. I thought it was a pretty clean game. I thought it was going to get, some of those breakdowns looked a little greasy. I seen the one announcer or whatever is like, yeah, the guys in pink are going to have a tough time looking at the game after this one. But yeah, all in all, I thought it was a pretty good game.
Yeah, no, I thought you can never complain, especially from a fantasy perspective with these high-scoring points. So let's talk about those high-scoring points. From a Seattle Seawolves perspective, Duncan Matthews finding the try line, 7.6 points. Dan Creel finding the try line as well, 8.9 points. Martin Iosefo finding the try line 2 times, racking up 16.6 fantasy points. AJ Alatimu off the boot, incredible. Like we mentioned, 9.5 fantasy points there. And then JP Smith with a couple try assists, giving himself 4.5 fantasy points. And then the Houston SaberCats side, like I mentioned, Seattle was kind of pulling away with this thing, and then there was this late push by Houston that scored a couple tries, really gave them that burst to get that ticket into the playoffs as they crept closer and closer. So that really led to a lot of these higher point scoring, fantasy point scoring, I should say, on the Houston SaberCats. You see Christian Dyer with 7.1 fantasy points, Luritz Vanderskiff at 7.6 fantasy points, Zach Pangelainen 8.2, scoring a try and obviously what was a very emotional matchup for him. And then Robbie Povey as well, I mean, with that clutch kick at the end, which is obviously going to go down as one of the more important kicks in the history of the SaberCats franchise, 6.5 fantasy points for him. So really a lot of try scoring here in this match, points being spread around. It's a lot of fun when you have, the amount of points scored in these matches, which you'll obviously see as a theme going throughout these games. That obviously a lot of points translates to a lot of fantasy points, which makes these weeks a lot more exciting. Let's move on to one of those games that had another quite a bit of point scoring in it. Rugby Atlanta taking on the Toronto Arrows in what was a very, very important match in the Eastern Conference playoff race. The Houston SaberCats solidified their spot early in the week, locking up that last Western Conference spot. This was the last Eastern Conference spot that was on the line. Toronto needing the win to at least stay alive. Rugby Atlanta could lock it up if they got the victory. Wasn't able to get it done. Rugby Atlanta coming out on top. But before we get into even the rugby performances, before the fantasy performances, what were those jerseys, guys?
Man,
I don't know.
That was messing with me.
Man,
right?
Did you know who was who? I had no idea who.
You know what's
idea.
bugging me? Toronto wore the blue pants with the blue socks still. They wore the blue and white socks with the blue and white pants. I'm like, what are you doing here, man?
I noticed that too. It looked like they were still wearing their normal shorts and socks kit, but they changed up the jersey
That
kit,
was-
which looked a little bit off. But yeah, it did throw me off that Toronto was wearing red and then Atlanta was wearing the blue. And I know they were branding it as the fire and ice matchup. I don't know what that
And
was
they're
all
both
about,
wearing white.
right? They
They
both
were
had,
basically
yeah.
wearing white.
It was
I
white
gotta
trim.
say though,
Yeah, it was
I
weird.
thought Toronto had it. I thought they did, man. I thought it was over, and then
Man.
Rugby Atlanta just clawed it back.
Yeah.
Man, it was Kurt Coleman, dude. That try he scored
Mhm.
with the juke. Oh,
Yeah, the juke can open up in space.
That was so dirty. That was actually so dirty.
Man, the one thing I actually took away from this was, I mean, hey, this just shows I'm already looking for next year's chip. But
Oh,
Ross
God.
Brody, or however the commentator
Brody,
say
yeah.
their name. I don't get any names right on this show.
No,
But
you don't.
yeah, Ross Brody is somebody to look for next. I mean, that guy is the definition of a try-scoring 9 and somebody who picks the gaps. And he's showed it. I think in the past 3 games, he scored some sort of pick try right off the
He's
back
got
of the ruck.
speed,
So,
man.
yeah, so
He's
he's
got
somebody
some
to
speed.
definitely look for. I mean, he's on the hot red part of my heat map. I can already tell you that.
I
No,
mean,
the
I
thing is,
guess
He hits
it's
that line with no fear. Nothing. Like
Yeah.
he was busting those plays. Like he wasn't even scared to get his head taken off.
and
But
I
he
mean, I
also
guess
just
for
I mean, it's one of the key things of being a halfback of choosing your moments, right? Like you can see that when he's probing and he's pulling that ball out of the rock, he's looking. He
Yeah.
knows exactly.
No, you're
once
right.
it
Because he
opens
sat
up,
there.
that's
He's
where
seen
gonna
that
go.
gap. Boom, boom.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That was
And I mean, for
dirty.
him, I feel like it might be a season of what could have been because obviously he was out for a large portion of the season with that injury that he did he did face about midway through. He missed about, I want to say, as I pull it up here, he missed about what did he get here?
had to be
He missed about a
around
month and a
4
half. He missed about a month
Yeah.
and a half of matches there. And obviously the Arrows were going through those scrum half problems, having to bring back Riley DiNardo, things like that. Obviously a depth issue at that position for a period of time. And then when Ross Brody came back, yeah, Matt, like you said, you really saw that try scoring ability that Ross Brody has. So yeah. What could have been with him? So let's talk about some of those performances. Brody, like I said, scoring that try, racking up 8.4 fantasy points, might be a scrum half that people were looking at next season in the fantasy world. Sam Malcolm, he seems like he was a low-key guy that just was pretty consistent. I don't think he had any really explosive, point-scoring games, but he finds himself, I believe, in the top 10 in total fantasy points scored in the over the course of the entire 2022 season. And again, he puts up 7.5 fantasy points in this one. And then John Sheridan, I don't know if you guys saw it. I don't know if that was a try. It was pretty close. I'm not sure if he touched it down. But
I didn't think
6
he got
points.
it down, man.
Yeah, it was tough.
I thought
but-
it was a fumble.
No, I'm not allowing this on this show. We are not slandering any Markham
Right.
natives.
I was just gonna
We are
say,
not
Vandy.
slandering Markham natives. He scored the try. He put that down. They still took the L.
There we
Right.
go. I mean, we'll give it to him because he's a fellow Markham Irish club member. So we got to give it to him there. But yeah, I don't know, a little bit questionable, but he did rack up 6 fantasy points with that try nonetheless. And then we're looking over at the Rugby Atlanta side of things. You got T. Rangatira Waitokia 9.9 fantasy points. Johan Mumson 6.1 fantasy points. Vandy, you mentioned with that slick try by Kurt Coleman that totaled up to 11.3 fantasy points, and then Tian Erasmus through the set piece getting 5.8 fantasy points as well. So yeah, a pretty back and forth affair. Kind of the opposite of what happened to the Seattle Seawolves, where the Houston SaberCats kind of pushed back in this one. Rugby Atlanta really pushed back here, and ultimately actually got the win there, coming back and beating Toronto Arrows, which ended up being the nail in the coffin for the Toronto Arrows 2022 campaign. The next week will just be for a little bit of pride here, and the Rugby Atlanta club has booked their ticket to the MLR playoffs. So that is the Toronto Arrows Rugby Atlanta match. Hey, you're wearing the jersey now, Vandy, so we got to get into it. The Utah Warriors taking on the LA Guiltinis. It was a close one, man. It was a close one. Utah Warriors, they beat the Guiltinis before, or at least came close to beating the Guiltinis, and now they made it another pretty good match. Guys, thoughts on the Utah Warriors? Vandy, I'll start with you. It's your team, man, and now you're wearing the jersey.
I mean, somewhat of a slow start, but I mean, definitely poured it on. The thing is, that forward pack from Guiltinis is just so strong. I thought, even though McEnany never really got on the board, I thought he had a great game. I thought he played great. And Lance Williams, if I could give the best player on my part, I think it was Lance Williams. He came so close to that one try. I thought he had a great game overall. But I tell you, that Billy Meeks, it's a scary dude, man.
Yeah,
That's
man.
Scary dude. He got that one ball, and I think he ran probably 20 or 30 yards, shoulder down, just bowls through.
Hey, he's one of those scary bald guys.
Yeah, you gotta watch out for them scary ball guys. Well, they got Nathan DeHote too. I was like, which one is that?
That's what I was gonna say. And then even Lindsey Stevens kind of has the bald look going. And I'm like, dude, you know how you were talking a couple weeks back or a month ago, midway through the season, Vandy, about how NOLA all had the frosted tips going. Maybe it's LA Guiltinis thing where they all just shave their heads. Now they just all. I don't know. That'd be pretty scary, man. Imagine just the whole Guiltinis team, just all bald guys. That'd be pretty. All it'll be a little Hitman respite. But all agent, what is it, Agent 41 or Agent 42? It looks pretty scary. But Matt, what were your thoughts on this one?
Man, I mean, it was, I think the jersey came a week too late. If you had that over the weekend, I bet you
we pull that out.
I
know we do.
I forget who knocked it on, but he wouldn't have knocked it on. They would have scored a try on that last play. It wouldn't have screwed their chance.
I think it was Bailey Wilson.
But maybe. I don't think so. I saw a scrum cap. But what I will say that I did notice was that Mikey Tail, I don't even know why. I don't even know when or how, but this guy, I turned it on, and it ends up Mikey Tail is putting the ball into the scrum. Mikey Tail is quick tapping the ball on the penalty. Mikey Tail is trying to run in there like a forward, trying to run at two or three props, a hooker and two props. Mikey Tail almost gets it in.
Yeah.
And then they score a try outside. Another forward pick, they score a try, and I'm like, well, this Mikey Tail guy, that barrel can really do it all.
Hey,
just the
you always
Swiss
gotta
Army
be
knife.
careful with dudes with a barrel.
There we go.
We'll scare you.
A couple takeaways that I had. First thing, I don't know if you guys noticed, but on the Rugby Network, they actually had two versions of this match on the Rugby Network. One with commentary and one without commentary. And it was really, really refreshing to watch the one without commentary. I know the play-by-play and all that has been a topic.
Right?
Hold on, Matt. All the things. Let me finish my point. All the things have been. I know it's been a topic of discussion of the play-by-play and the color and the commentating in the MLR. But I will say it was very, very refreshing to just hear the natural noises of the game, hearing the stadium, the crowd noises, hearing the announcer and all those things. It was very nice to see, and that is the one that I preferred watching when I was watching this one. So that was cool to have there.
Who's talking about these play-by-play and colors?
I don't know. Before. Yeah, it might be something brand new, but you may want to go check back in the earlier episodes. You may have something to say about it.
Speaking of alternate broadcasts, was there not an Espanol version?
There was, of the Gilgroneys and San Diego Legion match. There was. And accessibility, man. We're all about it.
I mean, they got what for one if your ears are bleeding from the commentators, and then they got another one for Espanol.
Yeah,
let the Rugby Network go. I love it.
It's great.
I love it.
And then the last thing here is that I think Paul Lasike only knows how to score a try one way, and that's just take the ball directly from the 9 and just go 100 miles an hour as fast as you can. And anyone that tries to get in your way, just get out, because Paul Lasike is coming through and he's scoring that try no matter what.
I don't understand. I mean, this guy's an NFL fullback, so they should just have the 9 just run and go like this. Just hand it off.
Take it, just a handoff.
Put it in, hand it off, and he'll just take it in. It'll be like he's right at home.
Yeah. And then last thing, and Matt, I'll get your opinion on it. The jerseys, man. You described the Guiltinis jerseys in a very unique way. I will say I did really like the Utah Warriors jerseys in this one. Kind of classic. Had the classic red, white, and blue, obviously, in light of Memorial Day weekend. But I thought the design was the one of the better Memorial Day jerseys that we saw out of the scenes. The Guiltinis, not so high on.
Yeah, I mean, the Guiltinis, what did I say? It looks like a beer can?
They looked like a beer can.
They look like 15 Gillies.
No, they looked like a Stella Artois beer can.
Yes, a Stella Artois beer can. That's
it had the gold trim.
And it just had the Gillies logo straight in the front. So it looked like it was literally the brand of a beer can, and there was 15.
Yeah, I wasn't a fan of
running around.
the Gillies. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. Well,
Hey, if you,
can-
didn't know already, Mr. Gilchrist
Right.
owns the team, has
You got a
named the
vendetta
team,
against this man.
and
Well,
in
I was
order
just
to
gonna say-
honor- in order to honor the salute to service, you got to have a big old Gillies on the front of your jersey, I guess.
I was just gonna say that our favorite owner, Adam Gilchrist, is behind those wonderful
Mr.
jerseys
Gilchrist.
and that wonderful branding and that beer, which I'm sure is so great and refreshing.
Also, again on the white on white, what's up with this? Can't they not plan what they want to do with their jerseys on that weekend and not go white on white?
yeah, I don't think that was necessarily a topic of discussion going into this week, Matt. I think it was just come up with a jersey, and then we'll see whether or not it works. And obviously a
Right.
little bit trickier in certain matches
At least
than
the
others.
Guiltinis, they didn't do camo.
At least they didn't do camo. That is I know a thing that you have an issue with. So let's move on and let's get into these fantasy performances. Yuri Van Vuren leading the way with 10.1 fantasy points, 4.5 for Calvin Whiting, Chad Go getting 5.7 fantasy points, Olive Khalifi 5.3. Like I mentioned, Polisike finding the try line like he normally does, in that crash ball kind of way, 5.5 fantasy points for him. And then Joe Mano also finding the try line, 3.5 fantasy points, but he got the yellow card, which got him that reduced value. And I will say, mentioning Niall Saunders at the top of the show, I'm saying that Vandy looks like a bigger version of Niall Saunders. He might have scored the lowest point total that we have ever seen. Not only did he get a yellow card, but he got a red card too, racking up a total of negative 12 fantasy points. I don't think we had anything lower this entire season. So I thought that would be a fun little
I
trivia
forgot
question.
to talk about this.
We had a big try when he was out with the red too. But
He was
anyways,
out
yeah.
the yellow. I mean, he got the red at the end of the game because
Or off the yellow, yeah.
it's. I mean, look, we didn't even talk about this, and yeah, whatever. Maybe the reffing sucked. All right, I'm not going to talk about that. Once the game's over, shut your trap, get off the field, and get over it. There's no room for that in this game. If you want to do that, go
I
over
seen
and
the
play
thing
some
on that.
soccer or something.
I seen a thing. It was a couple people kind of up in arms about how I guess in rugby it's very poor etiquette to kind of challenge the ref.
Yeah.
Which is crazy to me because every sport I watch, you can call them everything under the sun. But
Hey, you challenge the ref. You challenge the ref, you get a card.
yeah, and you know what? I thought that was kind of cool. And like, it wasn't anything bad, but he kind of, it was a couple weeks ago, but somebody kind of touched the ref, and the ref kind of gave him a look like, "Hey, man, don't overstep."
Yeah. Well,
That's
and it's
what I
something
love.
that I have a lot of respect for rugby for is that I think
I
the player to referee or player to official relationship, I think, is well established in rugby, and there is, like you say, Vandy, that etiquette that you don't often see in many other sports. Hey, we all know that referees get calls wrong, and we've all played a sport before, whether it's rugby or not, where you're going to disagree with the call. But yeah, there, like Matt said, there's no place to be doing that in the match or after the match, whenever. We obviously. Definitely after the match. Definitely don't want that. But shifting over to the LA Guiltini side, at some big fantasy performers. Hanko Gramicius, man, we talked a couple weeks ago about the confidence that you'd have to play a guy after coming back from a suspension. Malcolm played him on his Victoria's Secret starting squad this week in his matchup with no hesitation at all, and it paid off. He scored a try coming right off of that suspension. Luke Hardy 7.5 fantasy points. A majority of that coming from the tee, slotting a lot of those kicks through, which was at a high efficiency rate, which is pretty cool to watch. 5.1 fantasy points for Charlie Abel, Christian Poitevin 8.6, Andrew Tuwala 5.6, and then Lindsey Stevens 5.5. So that rounds out the LA Guiltinis and Utah Warriors matchup, which was a pretty exciting matchup between these two. The third of a very high scoring affair, which will continue for the rest of these matchups. So moving on to the Gilgroneys and San Diego Legion matchup, 44-28. Once again, a lot of fantasy points scored. The Gilgroneys getting back in that win column, a necessary win for their race against the Guiltinis for that top spot in the West. Thoughts on this matchup, Maddie, between the Gilgroneys and the Legion?
Yeah, I mean, great match to watch for scoring. I thought there was just some unreal plays, just so many highlights to pull from this game. One of the ones that I just want to touch on is that I forget his first name, but Henderson, the 10.
Yeah.
right off the
Andrew
jump,
Henderson.
you know, does the goose step, breaks the line as he's about to go off, just, you know, keeping the ball alive, just praying, Jesus, take the wheel, throw it over the shoulder. Thomas Aoki was there for the try.
Yeah.
A bit of luck,
very nice
bit of
pass
skill.
by Josh Henderson.
Oh, that was awesome.
But I thought McCaffrey had 2 beautiful passes for back-to-back tries for the Gilgroneys there.
Which is awesome to see from an 8, you know. Like
it is
that
awesome
is
to
that
see.
is just unreal to see. Love seeing back rows and forwards showing off some hands.
Yeah. No, it is really good to see. I will say, I think this was the favorite Memorial Day jersey that I had of the week. The black Austin Gilgroneys kit looked really, really sweet with the American flag on the side. I thought well executed, and it passes the test, Matt, of not clashing with a white on white. So there was that, and hey, it makes up. I think they make up for those jerseys with the, you know, the color on color number kit that they had in previous seasons with those nice jerseys. So that is nice to see.
Hey, I gotta put it in here. I thought Joe was gonna get that try.
And he's been on a little bit of a roll here. I think he scored tries in back-to-back weeks.
Dude, that
after
hurt
not
me
really
to see him go down like that. But then, hey, Michael Smith. I
Hey,
said, Ryan, I got the faith, baby. 2 weeks
I
in a
know.
row.
I was gonna say. I was just about to get to it.
Keep the faith.
Our boy Michael Smith finding the try zone. Last week we mentioned it was a little bit. It wasn't exactly pretty. He showed off a little of his kicking skills last week, but this week it was a little bit more traditional of a forward scoring, finding his way through the try line about 8 meters out. It was really, really cool to see Michael Smith back-to-back weeks. I mean, we had him on the show. He wanted to get that one, and now we're sitting here in week 17, and he's got 2. He's got 2, baby.
And hey, Bjorn, that was close too. That was so close. Great steal by Mahunanu, and then the little boot, and then Bjorn just looking like he stole a friggin' car stereo, just blowing down the side, like. But no.
Yeah, no, it was incredible to see, and we always love when friends of the show are able to find that try line. I mean, we had a lot of fun watching Ko when he was on that little hot streak midway through the season, and we're having a lot of fun now watching Michael Smith find the try line here to close out the season. And unfortunately, the playoff race obviously doesn't continue with the San Diego Legion. Their hopes are obviously done with the way that the Houston SaberCats were able to lock that up on the Friday night. They also have the bye in this final week, so that is the last that we'll see of Michael Smith this season. Hey, finishes off on a pretty high note here, scoring that try. So let's break down.
I take back everything I said pre-draft.
There we go.
I don't remember what I said, but I remember it was nothing good.
I think everyone just remembers now that your whole team consists of San Diego Legion guys. So I think everything that was said before has completely gone out the window in terms of your relationship with them through the course of these past 21 weeks for sure. So let's break.
I actually heard that that Vandy actually, that jersey that he's wearing, if he turns it inside out, it just turns into a San Diego Legion jersey, so he can switch.
You're right.
Whenever San Diego starts winning.
Honestly, that would probably perfectly describe Vandy's fandomship in the MLR, because it's like an outspoken Utah Warriors fan, but there's a little soft spot for Big Joe and the San Diego Legion. So that would be quite funny. But yeah, San Diego Legion performances, we mentioned it. Michael Smith find the try line, and this time he didn't have a yellow card to damper his fantasy performance, so he got the total 6.8 fantasy points there. Hankus Van Wyck also find the try line, 5.7 fantasy points. Ryan Matthews 5.6, and then you mentioned it, Matt, Thomas Aoki off of the beautiful pass from Josh Henderson for 6.5 fantasy points. And then we look over on the Austin Gilgroneys side, Mac Mason 7 fantasy points, most of that coming off of the tee. Hugh Roach 6.5 fantasy points, Luke Beauchamp 5.1, Jake Turnbull 10.7 fantasy points, and then Ryan Lawrence. It wasn't for you this week, Vandy, but Ryan Lawrence did score a try, 6.6 fantasy points. It was, I believe, Malcolm who picked him up last minute there. He needed a 9, Victoria's Secret benefiting off of that. But yeah, that was the high-scoring affair between the Gilgroneys and San Diego Legion. Obviously had a lot of implication in the actual playoff race in terms of locking that top spot, and obviously a lot of fantasy points scored as well in, like we mentioned, in all of these matches so far in a high-scoring affair. In I guess what would be the last kind of tight, high-scoring matchup of the week, the Old Glory DC taking on the Rugby New York club in DC.
What a game.
And talk about ending kind of this high scoring theme on a really, really high note here as we talk about it on this show. The most combined points scored in the history of the MLR. And do you know what is funny? Is that record was set last week in the Old Glory DC match against Houston. So Old Glory DC is in the 2 highest scoring matchups in the history of the MLR in back-to-back weeks. And it also, before I push it off to you, Matt, the most tries scored, combined tries scored in a matchup as well. And I'll leave it with this note. It's not surprising that it happens in a matchup where you have a backline consisting of Ed Fido, Waisake Nahalo, and Nahum Milner-Scudder. In their first appearance as a trio, they're in a match that is scoring this many amount of points.
Yeah. So Old Glory DC is still, I guess we've confirmed they're allergic to tackling, eh? So they just don't like it.
Honestly.
They're allergic. They just hate it. They get sick. Their stomach doesn't feel good once they start tackling.
Those wingers wanted nothing to do with Ed Fido.
They don't want anything to do. I don't know why anybody didn't have an EpiPen. Just kind of do a little hit stab right in the thigh. Maybe they'll make a tackle once in a while. But hey, I mean, it is what it is. But
danger, allergies to tackling.
Yeah.
Traces of tackling.
We do not recommend taking EpiPens to boost your speed.
Yeah. Don't do that. But it might boost your tackling though. No, but seriously, come on, get it together. All right, I actually want to say something serious about this game. All right.
Okay.
No, but I think one of this high scoring game is really, I mean, despite the tackling, this high scoring game really kind of showed what that New York backline can be, because you had playmaking plays from Windsor. You had playmaking plays from Emery. You had playmaking plays from Futai. I mean, they weren't like Futai and Emery didn't need to do the ball carrying. They didn't need to do too much running. They were able to act almost as second first receivers and be able to not only move the ball out wide, but use the boot as well and find open space. I mean, it just gets so easy when they're focusing on Fido, who scores 3 tries, Nahalo, who scores 2. Milner-Scudder is also another playmaker in the back that's able to do it all. I mean, it's insane just watching that back line go. But the last thing that I'll have to say, and I messaged Ko right after the game, I just let him know that I would have to mention the fact that he really he botched that last try. He was trying to go for a little fake dummy when he didn't need to. And then the guy from behind just went a nice little punch straight out. But what he said was it don't matter because we got the W.
Hey,
it doesn't matter because Rugby New York books their ticket with the win over Rugby Atlanta. Rugby New York does get that final playoff spot with Rugby Atlanta there, and how that kind of shakes up in the standings. We'll see how that happens in this upcoming week. But they did get the win ultimately. Ko not scoring the try. Would have been an interesting story to talk about how all kind of prominent back 3 players, all brand new signings for Rugby New York heading into the season, or mid-season signings heading into this season, and all obviously having major contributions in that match, and what is going to be major contributions in the foreseeable future for this club. Now, I will mention, because I think I want to spend the most time on this game, because I think there are a lot of interesting tidbits, at least also from a fantasy perspective, that we can pull from here. First, do you think it is a coincidence that after basically not really starting at fly half for a long period of time here for Sam Windsor, Jack Hyden getting most of the reps there at the starting fly half position, do you think it's a coincidence that the first match that you have the Ed Fido, Waisake Nahalo, and Nahum Milner-Scudder kind of trio, that he's the one that Rugby New York is selecting to be that facilitator from the 10 position? Do you think that's something that is a coincidence, or do you think that it was planned out, that he's our guy, it's just that we didn't need him to be there necessarily, didn't fit with kind of the style when they didn't have him in the lineup?
No, I think they just really didn't want to have a full all-black lineup or a full New Zealand lineup. So they really just threw the Australians straight at 10, and then they just made it cut up all the New Zealanders outside. So I think that's the only reason why. If they had Hyden in there, it would have just really been all New Zealand born and bred lineup, and I guess they couldn't have that.
And then from a fantasy perspective here, we got to talk about, Ed Fidau's performance, Vandy. You mentioned it. Yes, there was an allergy, I guess, to tackling when it comes to trying to take down Ed Fidau. But that being said, and for those of you listening, Matt just got the EpiPen into his thigh.
That's how you tackle Ed Fidau.
But it is incredible to watch this guy find that second gear, after he gets the ball, right? Like, he's already at what I think is top speed, and then somehow he finds like another level where he is just turning on the jets. He showed that 3 separate times here this past week, at least 2, which were tries that were over 50 meters. He totaled a total of 123 meters in this past match. But I wanted to mention with him particularly is because he's now, we mentioned earlier in the show, the try scoring leader heading into round 18 of the MLR season with a total of 12 tries scored in 2022. It brings the conversation of, is this glimpses of DTH Vandermeer from last season? Do you think that now that both of your seasons are, obviously you guys were talking, are looking ahead now, do you think that Ed Fidau is going to be a top pick? Do you think he's worth the top pick? Or do you think it is more of a product of the situation that is in Rugby New York, where they do have the explosive backline? And if it was someone else, if it was Andrew Coe in that position, they didn't have Fidau, it would be him? Or do you think it really is the Fidau kind of athleticism that we saw this past week that really lends itself him to being a top pick?
Yeah, he can't be a DTH Vandermeer because, DTH has hair so that he can die, so he can become the mascot of a team. Fidau is bald, and he's got nothing to show. All he does is score tries.
Oh, that was a bad one.
Hey, come on. I tried my best.
Pushes, eh?
Anyways, look, I think Fidau, no respect to Coe or anybody else that might hop on the wing, but Fidau is clearly just like a thoroughbred out there. That guy is another level, and the fact that the teams have to decide to focus on Naholo, have to focus on Milner Scudder, and then also think about Fidau. You saw that whether it's Fidau, whether it's Naholo, both of them ate, both of them feasted, right? So I think it's just really, like you said, a product of that back line, but it also says a lot about the class of those wingers.
Yeah, and Wysocki Naholo, you mentioned him, had 2 tries in that game. 2 pretty stark contrasting tries. I don't think he could have gotten an easier first career MLR try. It was really just a pass from Sam Windsor, wide open, 5 meters out. All right, let me walk this in. And then obviously you got to see the speed of Wysocki Naholo on his second try. So it's just something really, really interesting that I thought I'd point out, at least from a fantasy perspective. And I think we're going to be having this conversation, especially with his back line that seems to be this old boys all black line, all black line from overseas. It doesn't look like this is going to be something that's just an anomaly this season. It's going to be for many seasons to come with this Rugby New York team, and for at least as long as these guys are in the MLR. So it'll be interesting to kind of track over the course of these upcoming fantasy years. But with that being said, let's talk about some of these performances. Ed Fidau, we talked about 3 tries, over 120 meters total distance, totaling up to a total of 27.3 fantasy points. Sam Windsor, 13 fantasy points, largely finding that through getting the ball through the uprights. Rugby New York set piece, 5 fantasy points. Andy Ellis, 5.4. Caleb Geiger, 5.5. Connor McManus, 11.1 fantasy points. And then Wysocki Naholo with his 2 tries, 19.6. I will say, I believe it was McManus. I don't think it was Buckley. McManus with that little through the legs pass to Wysocki Naholo on that second try that he has was pretty nifty by the 9. I thought that was pretty cool. So yeah, a lot of points scored in this matchup. And yes, there was another side that we do need to talk about, the Old Glory DC. They scored a lot of points, but yeah, they weren't able to do it defensively. But the guys that were able to, I guess, benefit off of the total points scored by this DC side, Renata Roberts-Tanana, 10.7 fantasy points. Vandy, you're pretty happy with that. He's on your squad. Big fantasy performance for him. Doug Fraser, 10.8 fantasy points. Junior Sow, 7.3. William Teletaina, 14 fantasy points. And Rohan Saifaloy, a huge pickup really for Rugby Morning through the midway of the season at that fly half position when there really weren't many fly halves to be spread around. 12 fantasy points for him. And then Josh Brown, 5.5 fantasy points in his first appearance for the DC Old Glory Club this past week as well. So let's move on to this last matchup. I don't think we need to touch too much on it, guys. I mean, New England Free Jacks already have this Eastern Conference in the bag. NOLA Gold, I think we know what this team is all about. New England took advantage of it. They did still play a few key players there in this matchup. Nonetheless, 57-5 is the final score in favor of the Free Jacks. Any kind of quick points here on this match, guys?
Yeah, I mean, somebody's got to be the Dallas Jackals, you know. Somebody's got to take the beating in the week. You can't just beat Dallas Jackals every week, and I mean they're on bye. So Nola Gold.
So Nola said, "I'll take this one this week."
Yeah.
Sorry about it. It was your turn this week.
So,
that's all I got.
I should have played Mitch Wilson. That's my takeaway.
Yeah, Mitch Wilson put himself in the top 10 fantasy conversation, which is pretty crazy because Mitch Wilson is not a name that we've mentioned on this show for quite some time. Vandy, you obviously know you haven't played him in a while for that reason. And it's just, I feel like that's the nature of fantasy rugby. I mean, it's hard to predict when these guys are going to go off, and it feels that much worse when you have the guy on your bench when he goes off for a performance like that, which is like, it really is a game, a matchup winning performance to a 10th degree, even more so than you see in dominant fantasy football, fantasy hockey, fantasy baseball stats. 3 tries is a huge thing. Is a huge thing for the fantasy rugby landscape and the amount of points that are scored. So Mitch Wilson, shoulda, coulda, woulda for you there, Vandy. But yeah, that's the last matchup of round 17. Like we mentioned, just a lot of points scored in this week, which translated to a lot of high scoring matchups in our fantasy league, which we're going to break down right now because it's time to reveal our very first Fantasy Ruckers League champion in the last Commissioner Yee's League update of the year.
You guys have.
Hear ye, hear ye, hear ye, hear ye.
Hear ye, hear ye. Here's Commissioner Yee with your league update, Matt. We had the last Commissioner Yee's update of the year, and you're talking over the trumpets. What are we doing here, man?
Look, because I know that I can do better. I know that all you need to do is just give me the cue, and I'll give you the right. That's all I got for you. I'll give it to you right there. But hey, what I was gonna say is these boys have written their name in the history books of the Fantasy Ruckers show, and they have solidified their names in Fantasy Rucker history. And now, Ryan, take it away, man. Announce these winners.
See that this is the year.
That was such a great buildup. I can't wait to find out now.
All right. Well, here it is. Time to reveal it. And like we mentioned. Hold on. I gotta reiterate to the people what is exactly on the line here. So we mentioned it last show. The thing that the league members were playing for was a $100 donation to a charity of their choice. The winning team would be able to choose whatever charity they would like to make that contribution to. And then in addition to that, we actually added a little bonus here to give people a little bit of an incentive to beat Vandy. The amount of teams that finished ahead of Vandy in the regular season standings would contribute an additional $20 to that championship pot. So it actually ended up being a total of $220 to the charity of the winner's choice, because 6 teams finished ahead of Vandy. It was only Matt that didn't finish ahead of Vandy in the total standings.
This is silly. How am I? Vandy, you hate charity, man. The fact that you didn't let me get that. You hate charity. That's all.
And then
you hate the BC rugby kids that want to play rugby. You hate them.
And then the other thing that they were playing for is the official Fantasy Ruckers League championship jersey. This is something that we showcase on the background here. We're going to etch the names. This is the history book. Etch the names of the teams who win our league on a year in and year out basis. And we're going to collect that over the years. I think it'll be really cool to have. You could probably recognize this jersey, obviously, from the Barbarians FC Club. But this was where we drew a lot of our inspiration for our mascot. Fun fact, fact, on our logo, Fantasy Ruckers logo. So this jersey is going to have the name of the team that we're going to mention here in just a moment's time here. But now, Vandy,
suspense
is the time to bring in the drum roll as we reveal the winner in our championship matchup between the lads on tour, John and the Dankest Anchors owned by Hokie. The winner is the lads on tour. John is the winner of the first Fantasy Ruckers League Championship. Man, really doesn't go to a more deserving guy. Obviously, Hokie put in a lot of work, a well-fought battle. It was one of our highest-scoring matchups of the week, but congratulations to the lads on tour taking home the Fantasy Ruckers League title. And that means that not only is the lads on tour going to have his name etched on this very, very beautiful and highly coveted Fantasy Ruckers jersey, but a $220 total donation is going to go to the BC Grassroots Rugby Foundation to help grow the sport in BC, and that is BC, British Columbia, Canada. A really, really cool cause that we saw that John was able to talk about last episode, if you kind of want to hear the details about what they do. But awesome job between John and Hokie in their finals matchup. And to give you a little look here of what that matchup actually entailed and what the final score actually was, man, it was very, very intense and a high scoring matchup, just like the week that we saw in the MLR. 50.4 fantasy points scored by John to the Dankest Anchors, 33.7. Both adequate weeks. It was really just the performance of Ed Fidow that really took John to the chip and brought him home the title.
Yeah, I mean, if I had Ed Fidow scoring 27 points, I'd be pretty comfortable as well. But man, am I tired of seeing this guy winning. Congrats to him, but man, am I tired to see this guy winning fantasy leagues. Let's get to next year.
Yeah, there we go. And Ben, any words to John, the guy that I was able to roll through this year?
Well, I gotta say it was well deserved. I think the one thing I took from both of you is take notes. Literally, take notes, write them down, make spreadsheets. Matt wasn't kidding when he said he set up 40 of them. Probably he's dummy like that, but I mean, I'm gonna have 40 legit ones.
You don't even know how to work Excel.
There we go. But yeah, well
maybe
like
next year Louis can.
Hey, there we go.
And like I said, the Dankest Anchors Hokies putting up a well-fought fight. Milson Aravi, 7.2 fantasy points. Hugh Roach, AJ Alatimo just wasn't enough to topple that 50.4. So close for Hokie, but he'll look towards next season to kind of continue that role.
Great run, Hokie. Great run, Hokie.
Yeah, but yeah, congratulations to both of our finalists, and then congratulations to obviously John and his lads on tour squad for winning our very first Fantasy Ruckers title. And we hope we'll bring him on the show next week to kind of officially crown him the champion and give him all of the championship praise that he deserves in next week's episode.
Now, Ryan, I gotta ask. You've given birth to this product. You've given life to it. At the end of it, is it what you wanted? Is this a long? How many episodes are we? 18 episodes.
21 episodes in.
21 episodes. After 21 weeks
9 plus 10.
Is this what you wanted?
You know what? I will say, and we're going to get into more of a reflection of what we thought in the season in just a bit. But yeah, I think just how this league finished off with the amount of points that were scored kind of shows you the potential that this project has, but also just going through it was also just the excitement that we had throughout the entirety of this season. I mean, you guys as league members have been speaking about it on a week in and week out basis, but it's not often from a commissioner side of things where you enjoy, I guess, all the logistics and I guess administrative stuff that comes behind in running a league. And that is something that I actually had a lot of fun doing and trying to figure out what type of logistics stuff, what type of rule stuff, what type of, I guess, quote unquote, administrative stuff works in a league that doesn't really have any existing framework. So that was a lot of fun. But yeah, we'll get into a more of what we thought about the entirety of this season as well in just a moment's time here. But to quickly wrap things up, at least from the update perspective, the consolation final between Malcolm, Victoria's Secret, and Rugby Morning. Victoria's Secret coming out on top to finish in that third place spot. 54.5 fantasy points. Pretty big stuff here with them. And then, hey, Toilet Bowl Championship. Pretty crazy stuff, man. It was for the number 1 overall pick in next year's 2023 draft. And between the Feral Hippies and Ruck and Roll, it was the Feral Hippies that came out on top. Well deserved. 44.4 fantasy points over Matt's 31.1. Hey, Matt, you have something to say for Steven?
Hey, look, Steven, look, I got this for you. It's a special one limited edition of 6 rolls of not Charmin, but very ultra soft. This is just for you. I even etched your name in the back here. And you know what? Just so that we all know what the real prize is, I'll just give you a little bit of signature here.
From Daddy.
And this one's going right to you to use on your toilet bowl crown, buddy. Way to go, man. Way to go.
Well, there's no better deserving guy that I thought. I know, Matt, it was at your expense. It was at your expense, but a guy that basically took a team that was essentially in the bottom heap of this league, turning it around, and now has the first overall pick for next year's draft. There's a lot of bright things for the Feral Hippies in the future. And then I got to mention, I got to add it here, Vandy, the last matchup, it was the toilet bowl consolation. Not sure what worth that has, but Vandy, you fell just 2 points short against Wes in the I shouldn't be here finals. 31.5 fantasy points to 29.5. Close, but I think it goes to show you how much you've learned in this year by putting up 29.5 fantasy points. But I also think you've been humbled in a way that, you know, there's a lot more for you to learn in fantasy seasons to come.
If I had some ultra soft toilet paper, you'd get that one, bud.
There you go. And I know, Vandy, that you want to actually start working and hitting the books and getting on that draft prep for next year already. So before you go here, I want to say, Vandy, was there anything that you want to say about this season that you learned that you're going to take into next year? Just an overarching thing that you want to say to the people about your involvement in the project. We're going to talk about it more throughout the episodes in the off season, but just kind of your final thoughts on the 2022 fantasy MLR campaign for the Rucking Goat.
I would have to say, take the dive, take the leap of faith. I joined this. You guys reached out to me. I watched very little rugby with you in college, Ryan, and yeah, pretty much zero. I watched highlights, all right, and 90% of it was the haka. But I would say take the leap of faith, guys. This is a lot of fun. It's really well run. The community was great. The guys you're playing with are fun. It's all for charity, and at the end of the day, don't be scared to lose. Don't be scared to hit that learning curve because, man, rugby's a beautiful sport. I'm actually really enjoying the game. I wish other sports would watch how this game is even umpired or reffed or however the hell you want to call it. But I don't know, man. I'm really excited to see how this project takes off in the next couple of years. And I mean, if we can get more devoted people that we have now, man, this thing's gonna be awesome. This thing's gonna be absolutely awesome.
Hey, well said, man. Well said. That was good. That was good. And hey, on the way too, man. Like you said, you got a free piece of kit on the way too. And now, kind of like with this Fantasy Ruckers project, your fandomship for the MLR and the Utah Warriors only starts from here. Show off that jersey one last time, man. Before you go, show it off one last time for the people before you go. Chair's gone. There we go. Hey, and for those of you listening, Vandy is doing a nice little pose for us here, flexing in his new Utah Warriors jersey.
Twin brother.
Yeah, you look good, Vandy. You look good, man. But hey, go hit those books, man. Start that draft prep right now. Let's go.
Always. All right,
there we go.
Love, homies. Peace and love.
Right. Well, that was Vandy had to scoot out of here a little quickly here. He's got to hit the books. He's already motivated. After he got the jersey, he's already talking about 2023. He's got to go. He's got to get that study going.
He's going to start with Google and think and first figure out how to download Excel. And then he's going to go next. And it's going to go, what does cell A1 mean?
Should we sign him up for a Google Excel certificate? We could sign him up for a little course.
Yeah,
and then he can take the step by step.
Well, you know what? Really, let's be real. John won with sticky notes. Van, you should start with the sticky. Let's keep him there. That's something that he knows at least that he's probably used before.
Yeah, we'll start with that. But yeah, that was our round 17 results in our final. Once again, congratulations to John and the lads on tour for winning our inaugural Fantasy Ruckers League championship. And yeah, got to give a big shout out to the Feral Hippies as well, Stephen Lowen, for not only taking home the Toilet Bowl championship and getting himself a nice 6-pack roll of Not Charmin toilet paper.
Yep.
And a signature from your very own Fantasy Ruckers host, Matt Yee, not to mention. And obviously the number 1 overall pick for the 2023 draft, which I'm sure is going to get you very, very excited and pumped up for next season. But yeah, that was, man, it feels kind of weird to wrap up this commissioner's update. The last one of the season, man. That's pretty crazy, dude.
It's it feels pretty crazy, the fact that we made it through 17 weeks of fantasy rugby, 21 weeks of fantasy Ruckers shows, and I mean, here we are, and I mean, it wouldn't be what it is without the work that you put in, and then all the work and time that you've put into this, and it feels crazy to be done. But the
league members too, man. Yeah. I will say, like, it took a 17-week grind by our league members as well to kind of be committed to continue making those pickups. This is a very, like we mentioned in our like early shows, this is a very manual league. It's not very automated. There isn't no app. There isn't a database that people can pull from and make pickups like you do on your typical fantasy football, fantasy other fantasy sport apps. So it takes a lot of hard work from our league members, and they did that through the entirety of the season, which really helped my end out as being commissioner and being the guy that was collecting all these stats. It really made the process that much easier, and really we wouldn't have made it to this point without kind of the combination of all of those things. So yeah, a huge shout out goes out to the league members as well. And before we move on here, we're talking like the fantasy season is over, but let me tell you,
never over.
The fantasy rugby season is not entirely over, and we got a special announcement coming next episode, so you want to stay tuned. But we are coming out with a special little fantasy football playoff challenge that we're going to introduce to not only our league members, and this is the big thing, not only our league members, but to the entire Fantasy Ruckers community. So even though you weren't maybe in our 8-man league here that just wrapped up, and you didn't get the chance to be a part of that, maybe you're one of the people that reached out to me before after the spots ready to get filled, or maybe you're just hearing about this right now, but we have a fantasy playoff rugby challenge coming for our community members. The details will be on our next episode. The details will be released on social media. So remember, make sure you're following us everywhere. Make sure you subscribe on YouTube, and you'll be the first ones to hear about this challenge on our next week's episode. But I'm not going to say anymore. I don't want to give too much away, because this is a big thing. I mean, imagine not only having the 8 people that you need to deal with, Matt, on a regular basis, but to deal with the entire Fantasy Ruckers community. I don't know if that scares you. I don't know.
I can only imagine what it feels like to be 8th right now, and I can only imagine what it feels like to be 50th in a league. So.
Well, you got a little taste of it in the bracket challenge, so maybe that prepared you a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, that got me up to the double digits, but hey, for this one, I'm expecting big numbers from the boys. But you'll find out what it is next episode.
Exactly. So at this point, just spread the word, get people to join our Fantasy Ruckers community, get people to get aware that fantasy rugby does exist in the MLR. And I think if we can spread that word around, it's only going to get bigger and bigger. And we want this challenge to have as many people as we can in it, so that it makes it the most exciting that it can be for everyone who wants fantasy rugby to be a reality in the MLR. So with that being said, yeah, last Commissioner Leagues update of the fantasy regular season. I'm going to continue to give those updates from a league perspective every episode, but at least from a scoring perspective. That's it, man. That's the fantasy season, and that about wraps it all up. And we'll finish off, I guess, the tail end of this episode by kind of talking about what we've learned here, Matt, because we will go through the off-season episodes about things that we've noticed, fantasy rugby as a whole. We're going to dive into some in-depth stats. We'll have these things for you on these off-season episodes, but just to get the taste buds going, and before we start breaking these things down, Matt, what was your kind of overarching thing that you took away from the 2022 Fantasy Ruckers League season?
Yeah, I mean, hey, I could go on and talk about all the strategy things that I want to use for next year, which I won't because obviously mine's going to be the winning ways next year, so I won't get into that. But I think even more important than that, and to a bit more of a serious note, um, man, did we ever figure out just the missing kind of piece of the puzzle here? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
there is a certain fan base that is willing to kind of commit and be part of a community and be part of just honestly have fantasy sports in the MLR. And while the MLR is growing, this show has also and this league has also just continued to grow week by
Mm-hmm.
week. I mean, going from being, week one to the preseason of talking about the draft, only really having like 8 to 10 people, that just the people in the league that know about it. And then
Right.
suddenly we're on MLR All Access. And then
Mm-hmm.
next thing you know, we've got, more people, more community members joining. And now, it's just
Players
it's just
players
crazy.
are liking our posts and
Players are
stuff.
liking our posts. They're they're reposting the post.
Mm-hmm.
It's crazy that even now that it's not just us that know about it. It's not just the league members. There's a community. There's the players that know about it. The MLR All Access group and that kind of it's known in that space as well. Man, it's crazy to see how this has grown, and it's just made me so excited to see what's to come once stats come in, once whatever's up next comes in to help out and make this process easier to have multiple leagues, multiple maybe get a league of 12, have multiple leagues of 12. It's just so much potential it has really shown. And I'm just really excited to be part of it and to continue to be on this show and talk about it with you guys.
Yeah, no, I couldn't really have said it any better myself. Just to add to that, I think this past season has shown us, it's possible, and there's a possibility to make this. And I know we repeat it over and over, and it's kind of become our little motto here. But it is possible to make fantasy rugby a reality in the MLR, even when we don't have necessarily the resources that are essential for it to be an actual thing. And that just makes me so optimistic on the potential that this has that you're talking about, because the sky really is the limit. And if we can get those stats from the MLR, if we can create a platform that more people can use, get more people playing fantasy rugby, have more leagues, get more commissioners on board, really grow this thing, I think fantasy rugby is going to be a huge way that people can not only digest the sport and digest Major League Rugby, but also, in Vanny's case, introduce new fans to the sport to get them intrigued in watching the MLR, which will only help Major League Rugby grow as a whole and get it to the spot that it needs to be, or where it should be in the ethos of North American sports. I know it's a stretch, but you look at the MLS and what they've been able to do in the past years, and now they have a team going into, they won a Champions League version of their tournament. That's where we want the MLR to be. We want the MLR to become a league that is, internationally recognized, and it's getting there. And hopefully fantasy rugby and the fantasy Ruckers community ultimately can be a part of getting the MLR to that spot of national notoriety within the rugby community. So yeah, I really couldn't have said it better myself, Matt.
And I mean, just the final thing is just I'm so happy with kind of the group of guys that we got together in our initial inaugural first season. So much discussion, so much constant kind of banter in the group. It was a place that I could always go and kind of, if I ever wanted to say something dumb or say something ridiculous about the game on the weekend or something about rugby, it was a place that I always knew that I could get that out.
Right.
And just it's honestly, and I'm sure all the other seven boys are saying the same, but it's just been so unreal to be part of the inaugural season and be kind of etched as that first season that piloted what's going to come in the next 3 years, 4 years, 5 years of whatever this Fantasy Ruckers show, whatever the Fantasy Ruckers league looks like, or leagues look like. So yeah, just unreal, and it's just causing a lot of excitement to build.
Well, I mean, it's surprising and not so surprising at the same time, because on one hand, it's like, man, like we really lucked out in the the guys that we got in this league and just how passionate they are about not only rugby, but also wanting fantasy rugby to grow as much as we do. And then on top of that, it's also not so surprising because those are the types of guys that you're going to find who want to join a makeshift fantasy rugby league. So it's kind of like flip side of the same token. But yeah, no, couldn't be more happy with all the league members. So yeah, I'll shout you all of you out. John, Hokey, Malcolm, Fitzy, Wes, and then Vandy and you, Maddie, and Steven. And Steven. Yep. And Steven, can't forget Steven. Just what you guys have been able to do and coming together, it's been an awesome thing. And hey, that's like a little plug. If you're not in it, join the Discord community, because then you can be a part of that fun conversation and be a part of the league members and talk with them. And hopefully when we are able to expand this out to more leagues, it will be a central location for everyone who is playing fantasy rugby in the MLR to talk all things rugby, including obviously fantasy rugby in the MLR. So with that being said, I feel like that's a good closeout to this, to the fantasy season. We do need to, Matt, close out the show here. There is still 1 week left to play here in the MLR to close out the real regular season in Major League Rugby. So why don't we finish off the year here with making our final picks of this regular season. I will just say before we do make those picks, the reason why, and this is the very reason why we do not have our championship week in the last week of the season, is because there is nothing left to play in this week for the MLR teams. Outside of maybe the Gilgroneys and the Guiltinis playing for that top spot in the Western Conference, all of the playoff spots have already been solidified. They're really just playing now for seeding and who's going to play home and things like that. So don't be surprised if you see a lot of backups in these lineups this weekend. That was, like I said, partly the reason why we do not play our championship finals in the final week of the MLR season. So with all that being said, let's go through the picks and let's talk about who we think are going to win these matchups. The very first matchup of the weekend is NOLA Gold taking on Rugby Atlanta. Matt, who is winning this one?
Oh, man. I mean, look, Rugby Atlanta sealed it. And like you said, if I'm Rugby Atlanta, I know that I'm going to face a strong Rugby New York team next week. What am I doing playing all my star players? NOLA Gold's going to take this one. They've got nothing to lose. Last game of the season, they might as well just bring it all together and end the season on a high note at least.
Yeah, that 57-5 loss doesn't really give me a lot of confidence into the NOLA Gold. Yeah, you might have some lineup changes, but I think Rugby Atlanta is easily going away with this one.
Hey, Dallas Jackals are back. They don't have to lose by a lot this week.
Fair enough. Hey, that's something to keep in mind. The New England Free Jacks taking on Rugby New York in New England. I think the Free Jacks are obviously the top of the top. Rugby New York top of the top. This one's a hard one to stack because I can't imagine that either of these teams are going to really be playing any of their top players. But I do think that Rugby New York, because of the depth that I know they have, especially in that back line, they'll be able to get the win if they do decide to go with some of these backup players.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing is that I guess there is technically still something to play for Rugby Atlanta. Maybe I should have clicked this in when I made my last prediction, but I think if, let's say, Rugby Atlanta wins and Rugby New York loses, that's a home field advantage for Rugby Atlanta. Yeah. So if I'm Rugby New York, boy, do I ever want to play at that high school field in New Jersey. So I'm going to make sure that I'm getting this win. I'm going to make sure that it's not up to Rugby Atlanta to decide. It's up to us. I think Rugby New York, like you said, they pull out all the guns to make sure they get this home field advantage. And yeah, I think they beat the New England Free Jacks because New England Free Jacks don't really need to do much.
And now we move on to the next matchup, the later one on that evening. Houston SaberCats taking on the Austin Gilgroneys in Houston in a battle of Texas there. This one's a tough one because obviously Houston SaberCats already have locked it up. They're really not in the hunt for that 1-2 matchup between the Guiltinis and the Gilgroneys. But what makes it interesting is that race between the Gilgroneys and the Guiltinis. They're tied in record right now at 11-4. So they need to start off with the big dub to get that first round bye. Because yes, I would understand the home field advantage, but to get that first round bye, I think is an even bigger, obviously, advantage to kind of strive for. So I expect a full-fledged Gilgroneys team going into this to try to get that top spot in the West. So I got to go with the Gilgroneys.
Yeah, I agree. I think that they'll be going for that, and they'll want to make sure that they can get. I mean, I would rather put it all on the line to get a dub, get that week off before the big game, than take this week off and have to play 2 big games in a row. So yeah, I'm with you. Austin Gilgroneys win this one.
Okay, can we make this next one the fastest pick for a game as we can?
Sure can.
All right, Utah Warriors, Dallas Jackals. Utah Warriors.
Dallas Jackals.
Oh, what? Okay, now it's not so nice. Why Dallas Jackals?
Well, I mean, look, it's the last game of the season. Are they going to go 0-16? Are they going to go, come on. Dallas Jackals, I think they pull one.
You're just saying that because Vandy's not here to be able to punch you right now.
Yeah, I mean, look, you're not here to back up your boys. I'm going to say the Dallas Jackals are going to beat your boys. So there it is.
All right. Well, I guess Matt doesn't think that new jersey that Vandy got can work any magic on the Utah Warriors in this upcoming week. The last matchup, or the last 2 matchups here of the week on the Sunday, Toronto Arrows taking on Old Glory DC. Both teams don't really have anything to play for. They're back in Toronto. Toronto has been good at home. They lost last week against Rugby Atlanta, but that was away. They're back in the Great White North. I think the Arrows go away with this one with the big dub over DC.
Yeah, I mean, I love the Arrows boys. I love seeing them play at home, but I'm going to go with my boy Roberts, Nada Roberts, and his blue hair and his stepping feet. That man's going to score a couple tries. I'm calling it, and Old Glory DC takes the dub finally after putting up good points and getting the win, something they haven't done the past 2 weeks.
And then moving on to the Seattle Seawolves taking on the LA Guiltinis in Los Angeles at the Coliseum. Again, I'll remind you, it is a battle for that top Western Conference spot. The Guiltinis tied with the Gilgroneys with the same record, so they need a win here against the Seattle Seawolves. What concerns me here, Maddie, is that the Seawolves, man, they looked really, really good, despite obviously the match getting a little bit closer than it needed to be. There were portions in that Seattle Seawolves-Houston SaberCats match in round 17 that was this Seattle Seawolves team is looking like the teams that we've seen in the past. They look like a team that has won 2 titles in the MLR's history. So, will they give the Guiltinis a hard time here? It's tough. I think the Guiltinis are getting into that spot where they're getting a lot of their key players back. I do think the Guiltinis end up getting the win, but I do think it is going to be a closer matchup between the Guiltinis and the Seawolves, and a closer win for the Guiltinis than it will be a closer matchup between the Gilgroneys and the SaberCats. I think it'll be an easier time, I guess what I'm saying, for the Gilgroneys to get the win here than it will be for the Guiltinis to get the win in this next week.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I was about to say the Seawolves are going to take this, but thinking about it now, I think the Guiltinis are going to peak at the right time, and they'll get a dub out of this. So yeah.
There we go. Well, that wraps up round 18, and man, now it officially wraps up the end of our fantasy rugby regular season, man. And to say that it is a awesome feeling to be at this point is an understatement. And we mentioned it before we got into the picks, but really, really couldn't be happier with how this all turned out. And a large part of that is to all of you listening, all of the league members, and the entire Fantasy Ruckers community members for contributing to this. That really keeps us wanting to move on with this for seasons to come, which we hope will only continue to grow. And to that point, this ain't the end, right, Maddie? This ain't the end. This is just the start.
Never the end.
Exactly.
You might have crowned a champ, all right, but there's more to win. There's more to win here. We teased that already. And the other thing is, this show never stops. The boys are always going to be here. Whether it's me, whether it's Ryan, whether it's Vandy, whether it's all 3 of us, whether it's 2 of us, the boys are here. The boys are bringing you content. The boys are going to talk rugby. We'll get some boys from the league on the show, and just keep on following along because we've got some exciting things coming.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Well, if you ain't following us, make sure you are now at the Fantasy Ruckers, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. Make sure you give us a like and a subscribe here on YouTube as well. Leave us a comment. We love to talk a little bit of fantasy rugby in the comments there. Also, join our Discord community if you want to get into a more in-depth conversation with our league members and just talk fantasy rugby or any rugby for that matter. It's always a fun time over in that Discord channel. But with that being said, for Devin Van de Poel, who's already hitting the fantasy rugby books and getting prepared for the 2023 season, for My lovely brother, Matty Yee, holding up Stephen's not Charmin championship winnings for the Toilet Bowl.
Ultra
I am
soft.
Ryan Yee. Make sure you tune in next week for a very special announcement for the Fantasy Playoff MLR Challenge. We'll see you then.
You've been listening to the Fantasy Ruckers Show, bringing fantasy rugby to the masses, covering everything rugby from the MLR and beyond. We hope you enjoyed the show. Make sure to like, rate, and review, and be sure to tell all your friends. We'll be back soon, but in the meantime, connect with us on social media at the Fantasy Ruckers. Till next time, this is the Fantasy Ruckers Show, signing off.